number 4 tonight. Hey, if you're new here, give us a like and give us a subscribe as we deliver some great F1 content and sports content to you guys from around the planet here from Boston, Massachusetts. But I'll tell you what, we're talking about Gio going to Formula E, and that's Antonio Giovinazzi announcing just a few days ago that he was not going to have his contract renewed with Alfa Romeo and his stint in F1 would be over. But he quickly announced that he would be joining Dragon Penske, or Penske Dragon, whatever you want to call it, in Formula E.
Yeah, as soon as Alfa Romeo, I'm sure he knew that Zhou was going to be signed by Alfa Romeo. You know, the young 22-year-old Chinese F1 driver. We might be able to get into him a little bit and how much that's going to help Alfa Romeo to be right next to Bottas, especially. But I think, you know, the reason why Gio left F1 altogether is he didn't have any other options. He didn't have a spot to go in F1. Next year in 2022, we keep talking about the rule changes and how much that's factoring into this year, this offseason, last offseason. And I think that factored in here. A lot of teams, you know, there was a little bit of movement, but a lot of teams just kept the same, are keeping the same drivers into next season. So that's why Gio just kind of didn't have another F1 spot to go to. So as soon as Alfa Romeo was like, we're not re-signing you, he had to go to Formula E because there was nowhere else in F1 to go. You know, like we mentioned, Zhou, who's going to bring a big Chinese audience to the Alfa Romeo team. He's going to bring in all these Chinese sponsorships, which is huge. It's going to bring in a lot of money. Not that F1 is lacking money, but it just helps even more with more sponsorships, more attention. So we're going to see that next year with Alfa Romeo in 2022. But like I mentioned, with the new rules, they want to keep a lot of the drivers in the same places, and that's why Gio didn't really have anywhere to go.
Yeah, no, he definitely lucked out, and I think he knew about this maybe several Grand Prix ago because he's been making some really aggressive moves in these last few Grand Prix, and I think he just knows that his drive's coming to an end, so he's just going to be like, I'm going to send it. I'm sticking it. I'm sending it up the inside. Him and Kimi Räikkönen, his teammate, even had contact in turn 1 during the Sao Paulo Grand Prix this past weekend, and I doubt he cared at all. I'm sure Kimi doesn't care either because he's retiring, but it's just one of those things where I think over these last few Grand Prix, you're going to see a very aggressive Antonio Giovinazzi in the cockpit, and I love it personally. If you know your drive's coming to an end, maybe show them what they're going to be missing next year. But I really think this brings up to point more that this is a pay-to-drive system. And I think, you know, as much as Zhou or Zhou or whatever, I think it's more about money. And even Antonio Giovinazzi said that too. He said, this is about the money in F1. And in F1, it can be ruthless at times. Those were exact words from Antonio. So he knew that he couldn't bring in big enough sponsors, like you just mentioned, where Zhao's going to bring in the whole country of China on top of a bunch of other people and sponsors. So the money is rolling in. That's what Alfa Romeo needs to be competitive. So this is what I believe the main thing is. I honestly don't even think Zhao's going to do that good next year on the grid. Honestly, I think Yuki Tsunoda is a better driver than him, and I think he'll prove that next season as well. But here's the thing. I think he's just like Nikita Mazepin, right, is on Haas, has the billionaire father that invests in the team. That's why we all know he's in F1 and he's 2 to 3 seconds off the pace every race. I don't think Zhao's going to be that bad, but I do think he's going to be to the back of the grid, and he doesn't have much talent. Here's the thing why. He's been in F2 a few years. He's been up there battling, but he doesn't win. He doesn't have the F2 championship. I'll tell you who did win the F2 championship. Mick Schumacher, and he got his ride up into F1, and not only on his name of being a Schumacher, on winning the F2 championship. Yeah, I think that's the only way now you can guarantee or even give yourself an opportunity to get in F1 right now, sadly, is by winning that F2 championship and proving you belong the next jump. Because right now it's just about money. Like I said, Zhou didn't even win the championship. Now he gets bumped up into the F1 like world, the faster cars. That makes no sense to me, to be honest. So I think this is really more about money than it is talent. And you could say that for a lot of seats across F1. But like I said, namely that one with Nikita Mazepin in Haas. But I'll tell you what, man, I don't know. I just don't like it. I really don't like it. If he drives his butt off next year, proves me wrong, I will eat my words. But I honestly think that this is a 50-50. I think you've got drivers that have the exact same amount of talent. So they're saying, well, if we got the same amount of talent, well, we need the money, man, and we're going to take the driver that has more money. That's why Antonio loses his seat. But guess what? He is a talented enough driver that teams were waiting for him in Formula E. So he had offers. I'm sure he had some offers in some other motorsports as well. So like you said, though, do not count this guy out from coming back to the grid with potential of more teams joining the grid over the next 4 to 5 years. There might be more cars on the grid and more seats available, and you might see Antonio Giovinazzi make his way back in. But let's keep an eye on Zhou and see if he can even match up to these F1 drivers going forward.
Yeah, you make a really good point. Once Audi gets into the mix and some of the other car companies that might want to get into F1, Gio might be just jumping right back in because of his experience and his time on F1 already. So, yeah, I just think next year is such a unique year that's why, he just switched over to Formula E for a hot second. We'll see how long that lasts over the next couple of years. But that's going to do it, folks, for topic number 4.